about my new radio show, Tales and Tips, on Tuesday morning at 10 a.m. on Facebook, YouTube, Voice of Stockton, and KXVS Radio. I will discuss relevant issues affecting animals and pet owners today, how to avoid common problems, and how to extend the quality of life for your cherished companions. As a community advocate, I will also discuss important social issues that affect our city. I plan to showcase organizations and heroes who are doing amazing things to help others. Remember to tune in every Tuesday morning at 10, starting soon.
This is Barbara Berrigan-Perea with Delta Flows, a radio show by the Voice of Stockton and Restore the Delta. This is the weekly radio show where we discuss everything Delta related: the environment, water management, water quality, farming, history and culture, public events, recreation, Delta food, and the arts. Tune in to Delta Flows on KXVS, the Voice of Stockton, streaming live on Facebook and YouTube at KXVS Radio.
KXVS 92.1 Pantsuit. KXVS.
The views and opinions expressed in the following program do not necessarily reflect those of KXVS, the Voice of Stockton, or its parents, affiliates, management, and staff. KXVS, the Voice of Stockton. It's time for Connections, Peace and Justice Radio, with your host, Bruce Giudici.
Good evening. I'm Bruce Giudici. I'm editor of Peace and Justice Connections newspaper, and tonight we're going to be talking about women's issues and the March on Washington. And today we have Irene Western with us, who is with Pantsuit Revolution. Welcome.
Thank you for having me.
Very good, thank you. And we can just jump right into it. It's been a year since the inauguration of our president, and almost a year. And on January 20th, I guess that was the day. And the day right after that was about the biggest inspirational march that people could have had after such a surprising election result. And that was led by women. Mm-hmm. And so, anyway, we wanted to talk about what has happened in the past year, but also what what you did in terms of working with the march and last year, and if there's going to be some sort of follow-up coming up.
Okay. Yeah, that was quite an election.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, yeah.
So the Women's March was hatched by three women that felt like it would be a way for us to come together, celebrate what we can move forward to, mourn together, mm-hmm. send a message to Washington together, and actually also send a message to each other that we don't need to just sit still and let this happen.
And the reason why women got together to do this rather than any other group was, I think, because of the way that the election ran, the way that Hillary Clinton, who won the popular vote, clearly, and who would be our first woman president, was denied that. Mm-hmm. And but I think it was also in particular the way that the current president treats women. And so, that reaction, it seemed to play out in that day.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And they said it was the largest protest against an inauguration in U.S. history.
Yeah, it's amazing.
And it was men and women and children and dogs. And
and it wasn't just in D.C.
No, I was part of the one in Sacramento, okay. 20,000 people. And talk about an awesome feeling to be
where are you coming?
Part of that.
Where were you coming from? Was it down here in Stockton or
Galt?
In Galt.
I was in Galt at the time, but I'm part of Pantsuit Revolution, which we started about 2 days after the election.
Okay.
We met together for the first time and cried. Basically, we cried and told stories, and then said we got to quit crying and get going and get doing some stuff.
Yeah, definitely.
So then, we.
So how do you organize for something like that? I mean, it's like in the middle of November. Everybody's been working very hard on an election, and then it turned out the way it did. And then deciding to do something much just as time-consuming and difficult to do.
Yeah. We all were exhausted and frustrated, but we were also a bunch of kick-ass women that said, we can do this. We can do something to so it was sort of a kickstart. So the march wasn't the end. For some people it was. It was, they needed to just have that outlet. And then they sort of fell off, and so then the rest said, lots of stuff spawned off of the march. And so that's when people started these little grassroots movements. I had some community organizing experience from my social work days back in the 80s, 70s, and 80s. So some of the other women that were in leadership with this new group, which grew into about 300 women. We would meet regularly with maybe 50 to 100, maybe not even, sometimes 30 to 50.
Wow.
But 300 women that said, we want to make a difference.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's pretty impressive. So in terms of organizing to do things, it's been like teach-in types of things, or has been organizing to run for office. I mean, it's been a year now. And so first thing, is there going to be another march on Washington?
There is. On January 20th, Sacramento again. The route will be posted on Women's March on Washington, Sacramento, so you can find them on Facebook, and I'm sure just Google them up. Yeah. But yeah, so our group is already organizing. We met last time and carpooled there, and we marched together. So yeah, we're going to do it again, and we may do it every year, but this year I think is going to be significant because we didn't just march and go home and be done.
Right, and that's a Saturday.
This Saturday the 20th.
And it's going to be like at 9 in the morning or something, and probably the Capitol steps or something?
It starts at 9 a.m. I recommend that everybody get there at least an hour and a half to 2 hours early. Parking is crazy. There's a big parking mall right by Planned Parenthood, and if you park there, you're just a couple of blocks from where they started out. Yeah.
Well, that sounds great.
And we want men, women, children, elderly, young, old. Yeah.
So out of this organizing process, there have been people who have come out to run for office.
Yes, and that's the big thing is we don't want people to feel like they have to run for Congress or president.
Although some are.
Yeah, some are, and absolutely, if you can do that, I plan to do that when I'm retired.
Yeah, I mean, up where I live, up where really? Yeah. Because up where
Sorry, Hen, I didn't talk that over with you.
That's okay. It's a plan at this point.
Yeah,
and
he's running for office.
Up where we live, Tom McClintock's district, we have 3 women who are running, and they're very competent and very articulate and no issues. And one of them is going to get the nomination. Yeah. And so... and that's really exciting because Tom McClintock is now seen as being a vulnerable, one of the races where the Republicans are feeling that they have to put resources into.
Right.
And so I think where you were coming from, or Jeff Denham is also in a vulnerable seat. In
Very
fact,
much so.
A lot of people were talking about instead of where in our district where McClintock is, where has been safely elected the past few years. Few cycles, that Calaveras County should put their efforts into trying to defeat Jeff Denham. But it sounds like there's a lot of energy around in the foothills for Regina Bateson, Jessica Morse, or Rosa Calderon. Those are the 3 women who are remaining in the field. But then, and they're just very strong candidates.
And there are 2 women, possibly a third, but 2 women I know for sure that are running against Jeff Denham.
Wonderful.
So I think the march empowered us. It gave permission.
Yeah.
I think it gave a lot of women permission to step up and say, I can do something. School board is a great place to start. If you're in a small community and you're too busy to run for what would be considered one of the bigger offices, start with city council, start with
county supervisor.
Exactly. There are so many places, and then you work your way to where.
Yeah, and we were just talking about this earlier. As you know, where I live up in Calaveras County, a lot of in rural areas, people have come to distrust whether or not governments can do anything, and because they hear that over and over again, and they and the people who are elected also believe the government can't do anything. And of course, if you're a teacher. I mean, if you have a student who is determined not to learn something, they're not going to learn something. Yeah. And so if somebody is determined to believe that the government can't do anything, then by gosh, that's the way it's going to be. Yeah. And so I think when we're talking about local elections like school boards and city councils, people can see that. Look at Stockton. I mean, where Stockton has elected people who feel like that government can do something, and lo and behold, it can.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think people now are feeling that sense that, and this is kind of a quandary we talked about a little bit when we were chatting earlier about experience.
Yeah.
So on one hand, yes, experience is wonderful, and I think necessary in some of those higher offices, but not always the deal breaker. So these two nurses are running against Jeff Denham.
Right.
And so the only experience they have is actually working with people on the front lines in medical field, in the medical field, and they're seeing what loss of insurance benefits or the fear of loss of insurance benefits is doing. So that's experience in itself.
Well, I think the experience of just having empathy for another person. I mean, when you're talking about being a political representative, you're supposed to, understand where where your constituents are coming from. And you can have somebody who's very experienced with a lot of stuff on their resume, but and they could have 3 degrees in this and then 20 years experience in that. But if they don't have a good feel for how people hurt and how people learn and how people have needs that have to be addressed, and you don't care about that, then all that experience doesn't mean much.
Well, right. So these 3 gals, let me just pull them back up here. These 3 gals, so Linda Sarsur, Tameka Mallory, and Carmen Perez are the 3 that originated the march last year.
The first march, the D.C. march.
The D.C. march. And out of that, of course, we all know spawned.
Yeah.
Oh, there was a march in one tiny little county. There's like 6 women marching in one county. And it just brought tears to my eyes because I went, everybody wants to get in on this. But these women, so Linda is a Palestinian American Muslim woman activist.
What's her name?
Linda Sarsur.
Sarsur, okay.
And she was kind of they call them the mother activists. And so she's a mother of 3, and she's fought a lot against discriminatory police action, like profiling and that kind of thing. Tameka Mallory, she experienced gun violence in her own family that made her a single mother. And she also worked with the Obama administration a little bit on gun violence legislation. And Carmen Perez, the third one, dedicated her life to working with young people, fighting for justice, civil rights workers. All these went, but they didn't start out with a bunch of experience. They got experience by doing.
Right, exactly.
So don't be afraid to jump on.
Indeed. This is Peace and Justice Connections. We're talking with Irene Western from Pantsuit Revolution, and we're talking about women's issues today. And so... where are we today? I just, last night, I was watching the Golden Globes for whatever reason, and heard a very inspiring speech by Oprah Winfrey. And I'm not a person who really follows Oprah Winfrey all that much, but there's a lot of people who do, and I can see why, because, what she had to say was pretty impressive.
Yeah. And again, we kind of talked about this a little bit. She's dabbling with the possibility of running for president in 2020. And that's going to ignite a lot of passion in people. It's going to ignite a lot of other controversial stuff. She doesn't have political experience either. She doesn't, that I know of, have a law degree. She's never run for any other office, but what we talked about earlier was that she's got the ability to negotiate. She's got a level head. So then who are we to say that she can't run or shouldn't run?
Also when she runs, she'll bring up issues that nobody else will. And sometimes it's important for those. If she gets support, that's wonderful. But if she also brings up, the issues that Black woman or African American woman experiences and understands. If something came out loud and clear from that Golden Globes thing last night, the award ceremony, was how women have just found a voice, in the last 6 months, or maybe just I don't know if it's starting with the march really, where people are feeling empowered that we're not going to take it anymore. No. That here is an election that was I'm not going to say that it was stolen, but I mean, and there are still. I mean, it was such a close election in the electoral college, and the popular vote Trump lost. You know, the whole idea of it being, and then with that being so close, you can say, well, any little bit of anything could have turned the result, and so. I can see that, you know, I mean, everybody was really quite taken aback by what happened, and then especially losing to somebody who is so misogynistic. I mean, it's just obvious that there's no understanding of any sort of women's issues in the current administration. There's one cabinet member, and she was promoted merely because the Homeland Security guy got moved somewhere else, and so there is just no women's voice now at the table. And then when these sexual allegations, these Harvey Weinstein allegations come up, it's just it's almost like lancing a boil or something. Yeah.
But then that's what's empowering women more women speak up, so more women are empowered to speak up.
Indeed.
So the first few brave ones that spoke up have opened up for these other gals. And when I'm talking to my students, so I teach U.S. history as part of my social studies.
And what grades?
8th grade. So I have 13 and 14-year-olds. Mm-hmm. I always put up this poster in the hallway that comes with the curriculum, and it shows all the presidents over the years. Mm-hmm. And I teach primarily brown and black students. Mm-hmm. And so they see this poster filled with all white men, which, God bless you. Thank you for all the work that white men have done over the years, really. But they don't see anybody that looks like them. Yeah. Nobody. Yeah. And so when they see the power that would be behind an election with Oprah in it, whether she has experience or not, the message that would be sent, she said that in her speech, to the girls out there, I want to say to you, a new day is coming.
Yeah.
And so seeing Hillary there, that would have been great, because that would have been little girls of any color would see a woman. Yeah. And when President Obama was elected, you know, all the message that sent to all little boys everywhere, that anybody can do this. But to have a woman of color I can't even imagine what that will do for my students to say, wow, yeah, I actually could be. What did Oprah say? She said, no one will ever have to say me too again.
Yeah. Yeah, and that is the ideal, but, you know, in our real world right now, we do still have, I mean, that Alabama race was still contested. You know, there was still a chance that the pedophile was going to win. And, you know, and it was a close race, and I you know, sort of congratulate the Alabamians to you know, who voted for a Democrat over a pedophile. I mean, that is quite a step forward
for Alabama.
For them.
That was a huge deal.
It's a big deal. But alleged. I'm sorry.
Alleged,
yes. Alleged by what, 5-6 people. So anyway, but the thing is that still it's you know, if when Obama was elected, when President Obama was elected, he had an amount of resistance that was, I guess, it was stronger than even against Bill Clinton. I mean, Bill Clinton, and it was primarily amongst. I would have to say that there was a strong racist component in stopping what President Obama was trying to do.
Absolutely.
And so so people thought when President Obama was elected that, okay, we've transcended race. You know, we're not a racist country anymore. But I think. You know, if you know, Hillary came so close, it turns out that, you know, we're just also not only a racist country but a sexist country. And so, you know, these like you say, lancing the boil. I mean, these uncomfortable truths are coming to light just based on you know, political leadership.
Yeah. And if Oprah were to run, I don't even know if she is for sure, it'll be ugly. And
it'll be difficult.
But she is a tough woman, and I believe she could take that. But I believe this was my partner that said this, so we hope this was you. I may be misquoting, but said something on the order of, if sort of a silver lining possibility of the Trump election, of the Trump victory, that it's brought all of this out again. And it was him. We were talking at the dinner table about bringing out this whole 60s, we're not going to take this anymore. People rising up. Community organizing was a laughing matter when Obama had that on his resume. And yet, that's what got him elected. And that's what will get these next few... 2018 is going to be a crazy time of flipping states. And I also work with Sister District Project, Lala, if you're listening, and Gabby. They believe in this whole flipping system of state legislatures, and that all of this came out of Trump winning. So if Trump hadn't won, great, we would have had Hillary for president.
Well, yeah.
So the bonus, but the passion that's come out and the awakening, I think that's valuable too.
Yeah, but it is at quite a cost. I mean, this current administration is fighting on all. I mean, it's firing on all cylinders. I mean, it may look like they're, if we're looking at the, the tabloids that look at, sort of superficial things. Trump is failing, but to get anything done. But he is actually getting a lot of things done. I mean, environmentally and just recently, just today, he was talking about deporting 200,000 Salvadorans, the DACA changes, the grotesque tax bill that he passed, the attempt to repeal Obamacare or the Affordable Care Act, and now going forward, now because they passed these tax cuts, now they have to figure out how to cut spending on low-income people so that the inequality in this country goes even further back into Dickens times. So
he's getting lots done.
He's getting a lot of stuff done. And the thing is, a lot of damage. And the thing is it's almost like he's waiting, just trying to get as much done until the election of 2018, which, like you're saying, is probably going to be a change. But a lot of people weren't saying that was going to be a change when he first got elected. They're saying, "Oh, this is going to be tough for Democrats." I mean, this world is changing now. But
I think the victory in Virginia and Oregon, there were a couple of other places that had some victories in these special elections. Yes. Now we're focusing on February in Florida, and with Florida being a swing state. Flipping that one. So as we see more flip, then people suddenly get braver and go, well, I guess we can do this. Like you were saying, if they're told what government can do, they'll believe it. But if you tell them that we can flip this and change this, then suddenly they'll believe it and get behind it too.
That's right. Yeah, because there's a lot of states, but I mean California. Bless us all. We add the
in all our blueness.
And all our blueness. I mean, the thing is that we provided the margin of popular vote victory for Hillary Clinton. If you don't count California, it's pretty much a dead heat or close to it. And so California is the shining leader, and so that's fortunate for us because we can participate in that. And whereas if we were in the middle of Nebraska or Iowa, it would be, well, I sort of feel like I'm in the middle of Nebraska. Well, you live in Rio Vista now.
Yeah,
I mean, it's
I'm feeling the waters out there, literally,
right,
but I'm feeling the waters to feel out where they are.
Yeah, and it's a different type of atmosphere where you try to talk about how government can do things with people,
right? Not
for people, but
what
people.
We do in Pantsuit Revolution, which I love. So my other fellow leaders in there, Kimba and Julie and Allison, what we try to steer the group toward is getting behind candidates in areas where they're not going to get that much support. So taking a red district, and then we've actually invited the candidates to come speak at our meetings, and then we get behind them with money. That some people don't have time, but they have money. Some people are retired and they have time coming out their ears, and those are the times when you want to get involved in the literal campaign, knocking on doors.
That's right.
Text banking is a new thing now, instead of phone banking, because we have a whole generation of digital natives that don't want to do phones. And actually, I'm an old person, but I don't really like doing phone banking. But I'll do texting. And so all kinds of new ways that people can jump on the bandwagon and help these red pockets. Even in California, we have red pockets everywhere. You know about that.
Yeah, indeed. Yeah. I live in one.
You're in a pocket.
I am in a pocket. Yeah. So going to the Me Too movement and how that started and how that is progressing, it just seems that there is just a real snowballing happening here. I mean, there is just everybody has a story. Everybody has a experience. Yeah, and it's I don't know if there is going to be a logical, if an Oprah presidency, or it is going to be a logical endpoint, but is there any sort of organization, or do you know of any sort of way that this is being harnessed in a way that can be politically?
Not yet.
No,
not yet.
Yeah.
But I'm seeing the Me Too movement almost as the flip side of the Trump empowerment. So when he was elected, suddenly police brutality, and I believe there are officers in blue helping people every day and doing an excellent job, and it's the few that are causing all of this. I really do believe that. But I feel like he is empowering lots of sort of hate groups and hate, and I think the Me
people
Too
are giving
movement.
Permission to,
yes, he's giving. So we're giving with the Me Too movement. They're giving people permission to stand up and go, I can do this too, or I want my turn at the table too.
That's right. Yeah. Yeah, because it is such a patriarchal system that we have. I mean, it's a militaristic patriarchal system, and so you would hope that the Peace and Justice Network puts out connections and is behind this show, and so we're into peaceful resolution of conflict, and so but. That's not really where we're going with the current administration, and so you would hope that with more female leadership that there would be a little bit more. I mean, I hate to be typecasting,
yes,
but there but a little bit more listening, a little bit less bluster, a little bit more listening. Just empathy.
Yeah, that's a very good possibility.
Yeah, that's a possibility.
And then just giving. Okay, so in liberal California, we have 22% women in our legislature. So what is that all about? It's
really.
and if that's happening in California, can you imagine what it's like in Arkansas or someplace like that?
Right.
So, and it's not just women voices, though. I believe that is going to be a huge deal.
So
voices.
So why do you think that? Why do you think that is? Why do you think women aren't? Isn't that they're not running, or is it that they're when they run they're not taken seriously?
Yeah, I think maybe they're tentative candidates right now, and that may be changing.
Not confident, maybe?
Yes, and they're maybe still, I don't know, deferring.
It's hard to generalize, of course, but...
And so, okay, we've talked about maybe in Jeff Denham, running over a couple of those candidates.
Yeah.
Being able to run back or just not get knocked over.
Right.
And so that's going to take some time because we're just now being given a voice and an invitation to the table. So there are some women who know what to do with that invitation and others that still don't know what to do with it. So so they're either not getting elected or they're not feeling like they are qualified to run. And so maybe having someone like Oprah run and win without the qualifications supposedly that we think everyone needs, that might get women to go, well, just like she did, just like Oprah did, go, well, if he can do it, I can do it.
Yeah.
So then maybe women around California will say, well, then I could run against this guy. You're saying that in District 4, there's 3 women running against McClintock.
McClintock, yeah.
So,
and very qualified women.
Yeah. So...
And
it'll be interesting the next 4 years to
Yeah.
see how many more women step up.
Yeah, because I'm running for a supervisorial seat in Calaveras County,
Good for you.
and and so but the thing is that and it was a district that was taken pretty handily by Trump, and so people say, well, how can somebody who's for peace and justice be elected in this district? And so my perspective on that is it wasn't so much it was a pro-Trump vote, but it was more an anti-Hillary vote. And I know a lot of Hillary people don't want to necessarily open up that discussion, but it goes to the point of qualifications. I mean, if you have qualifications, John Kerry was a perfectly fine qualified person. I mean, he happened to be a man. But the thing is, and he didn't win. Right. And so the same sort of thing. And so for whatever reasons, swift voting and all that sort of thing. But in the same sort of thing with Hillary Clinton is that she had a lot of qualifications, but she also had a lot of baggage that a lot of people were able to vote against.
She did.
And so, right. And so the thing is that just because you have qualifications, it's not the end. I mean, it can be very important because it shows who you can pick for your advisors and that sort of thing, and also you can be a good advisor yourself. But you can, if you have good experience in other areas and some empathy and some understanding of how people react and how people need help or can be encouraged, then that can compensate for some of that.
It can, and
I mean, because you see kids in school. I mean, I'm sure you don't say, well, just because you don't have a good track record in math that means I'm not going to help you.
Right. Just like we were talking about with your math experience with seventh graders.
Indeed.
Just because they're like 3 grades behind doesn't mean they can't ever do math.
That's right.
But they've been sort of beaten down and made to feel that way.
That's right. Yeah.
And so maybe women and minorities have felt that way for so long that they start to believe it.
Yeah.
That they can't really go. So that's why I'm so excited for my students. And believe me, I start my year with civics every time, even though it's in the middle of the textbook, which lands me somewhere in January, which who cares? There's no elections going on.
That's right.
We had mock elections, we had mock primaries, and it was just great,
great
to see them get excited about the process.
Yeah.
They're only really 4 or 5 years from voting, and some of them don't realize that. And they're starting to pre-register kids now at 16.
Yeah.
Which is really cool. I worked with Rock the Vote for a couple of times when I was living in Washington, getting these 18-year-olds that are seniors, just walking around getting them registered. We were using clipboards. That's how long ago that was. Now you're doing it all online.
Yeah.
But at 16 to get them already engaged in the process.
Yeah, we're still using clipboards up in Calaveras County.
Yeah,
yes,
that's okay. Clipboards. I have clipboards in my room. I have laptops and clipboards.
This is Peace and Justice Connections. I'm Bruce Giudici here with Irene Western and with Pantsuit Revolution. We're talking about women's issues and just issues in general, really, because they're all women's issues.
They are.
So, my concern with, and we can go to the Hillary thing. My concern with Hillary Clinton is that some of the things that she was talking about, that in terms of foreign policy, seemed to be as hawkish as some of the Republicans she was running against. And it seemed, I don't know if it was like overcompensating or what, or if that's just the way that she felt she had to run, or maybe that's just the way she feels. But it sort of, to me, it felt like it wasn't what I was looking for in a woman candidate. For me, in a woman candidate, I would want somebody who's a little bit more empathetic. Yeah. And not Nikki Haley at the UN either.
No.
So I'm hoping that and what I'm seeing is in our candidates that that we have up in District 4 that there does seem to be that thoughtful process.
Well, and she's been, if I can put, it's not really a plug for her book, but I about 3/4 of the way through her book, What Happened. And there's a lot of retrospection from her. And one of the things she said was, I am not my husband, and I'm not Barack Obama. She's doesn't have that warm, fuzzy thing that they work magic in a crowd. And she doesn't. She's a behind the scenes pragmatist. I'm going to get the job done, and this is how we need to do it. And when she comes off like that, then it turns people off. But if a man came off like that, they might say, "Well, good for him, go get him." But when she comes off as less than warm and fuzzy, and that's a woman thing that we're going to have to deal with, because I think women in the workplace deal with that too. If you come at something really assertively, not aggressively, but assertively. It's like you're not feminine or you're not caring. What happened to that nurturing thing?
What happened to that nurturing thing?
And we can have both. I think we can have both. But men don't ever have to explain that about their personality.
Well, but sometimes that's off-putting for I mean, I don't like to see men act like that. I mean, Donald Trump is just, I guess, a caricature of that.
He's an overplay of that.
He's just,
and I think Barack Obama was almost a perfect fit for that. He could be tough when he needed to, but he always knew how to do it with a tender stroke. He could also warm a crowd.
It's and part of part of, I mean, we don't have to replay Barack's problems, but, you know, part of his nurturing side, I guess, was believing that somehow Republicans were going to work with him.
Yeah.
You know, especially
Naivety,
on
maybe, I don't know, or
especially on the
hopefulness.
Affordable Care Act. You know,
Yeah,
and so
yeah.
you know, he lost some precious years there, and then ended up losing the House and you know, was fighting uphill for the rest
And I
of
think
the
the
time.
Democrats didn't, and my sweetheart will attest to this as well, because he's the one that has really brought this to the forefront for me, is the Democrats didn't do during those years that they had the supermajority, really,
Right.
that the the Republicans are doing now. They are racing like crazy
Sure.
to get things in because
Yeah.
they know what's coming in
Yeah.
2008. It just happens.
Yeah.
It's cyclical. It happens.
Yeah.
But we didn't, for some reason,
Yeah.
we did get Obamacare through, or ADA, or ACA, which my daughter, by the way, has been a huge beneficiary of. She's a 22-year-old poor college student, you know, and so that has been a personal testimony that, yes, it needs tweaking. I agree with that. Hillary agreed with that, and Bernie agreed with that. Everybody agreed with that.
Right.
But and another thing about elections, that since you're a Bernie supporter, because he was big on this, on campaign financing. That was
Right.
one of his big
That's right.
passions.
Yeah.
And Hillary a little bit, but
Yeah.
those people have the ability to raise those incredible amounts of
Yeah.
funds it takes,
Yeah.
and it shouldn't take that big of funds.
Indeed, yeah.
You know, and so if you can simplify it down a little bit to where you're not speaking, you know, for $1,000 a plate at some of these places that you're selling your soul to.
Yeah.
But do women have to do that because... So like with Pantsuit Revolution, we give all the time to women candidates. We pick, and not because we don't love the men that support us, because we do. And we would never elect a woman over a man that was a bad candidate.
Sure.
But we try to jump behind all of them and fundraise for them. And so I don't know if women face a harder uphill battle of that big campaign fundraising that maybe, I don't know.
Well, name recognition and having, you know, the experience.
Yeah.
But there we have some. I mean, Susan Eggman represents us.
She's spoken at our group many times.
Yeah,
She's
she's
Hi,
coming to our
Susan.
Earth Day event, and yeah.
Yeah.
So there are successful women out there who are
Absolutely.
navigating it. So Pantsuit Revolution, how can people get involved, or is there a way to show up at the march on the, what is it going to be, what day
The
is it?
20th, Saturday the 20th.
Saturday the 20th.
Okay, so a little bit about Pantsuit Revolution is we started as a group to support women who were disappointed with the election and wanted to do something about
Okay.
it. We've kept it.
Is it local? I mean,
It is.
okay.
It's local. We meet at the Philomathian
Okay.
Clubhouse.
Okay, right. And then that's down in sort of Midtown Stockton.
It is.
Like
It's
on the next to
on Hunter, North Hunter.
Hunter and Acacia, something like that,
Yes,
right?
right down there on that corner.
Right.
We've kept it, our Facebook group is secret, and we've done that for the reason that many women have faced family attacks, employer attacks for being anti-Trump.
Really?
Oh, absolutely. So we created a secret place to be safe, but we're not hiding from, if someone wants to join us, someone just has to recommend them. And so I'm going to leave my Facebook name here with your listeners. So if they would like to be invited into that group,
Sure.
all we do is just do a smidge of vetting, and that just includes just basically kind of checking your Facebook, because we found out at the very beginning, Pantsuit Nation, which we spawned off of, they were getting a lot of intruders to come in, and then they would, haters, exactly. So we didn't want that. We wanted a safe place where people could hide from their Thanksgiving relatives, you know, where you dreaded, and a place to unload on. So on your own Facebook page, you put one thing out there, and it's an attack from all sides. So Pantsuit Revolution became this place where we could all hide, and it's not like you only want to hear things that you agree with,
Right.
but you need a place to rest from the battlefield. So that's what we created the secrecy for.
Wow.
But so I'm on Facebook as Irene Swoboda, and that's Czechoslovakian, and it's SV like Victor OBODA. And if anyone wants to friend me on Facebook or just messenger me, I will usher you in, and you can join us at the march.
Oh, wonderful.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's just so remarkable that, you know, that people, I mean, you know, the politics have gotten to be so violent, have gotten to become so divisive that, you know, people can't, they can't just discuss issues with each other. And when I'm running for this District 5, and I've been asked a couple times, well, you're not going to throw F-bombs and stuff around. I say, no.
Really?
I sure hope nobody else does. But it's just,
it's gotten ugly.
Yeah. I mean, I just don't know where that comes from. I mean, are we fighting over the crumbs so fiercely that,
I think we truly are right now.
Yeah.
People are so passionate for or against that there's not that middle discussion ground unless you really required it.
And maybe it has to do. Well, it has to do, I think, with Facebooks and people talking to each other and talking to. I mean, there has to be a place where you can discuss something civilly, but.
Or hide in a secret Facebook group where you can discuss it civilly.
Well,
I lost some friends on Facebook, and it's sad that
because
friendship.
Of this?
Yeah. Some of them unfriended me, probably many that I don't know about.
Wow.
I actually had to let a couple of them go because they couldn't discuss or agree to disagree. So then I joined a couple of groups, just two. And that's another thing I wanted to say that we touched on a little bit out there.
Sure. So
many groups spawned off. So there was Swing Left and Indivisible, Sister District Project, Pantsuit Revolution, Pantsuit Nation. So many grassroots. And everybody was just signing up. And so when I first became a district captain for Sister District Project, I had 60 volunteers in my group. I went, yay, we're going to rock. I was in the Sacramento district, where I should have been things happening.
Yeah.
And like 7 people responded. Everybody got so excited to sign up because they wanted to do something.
Yeah.
But then they had already signed up for 10 other things.
Yeah.
So you kind of have to whittle it down to 1 or 2 things that you can really give your time and money to.
Yeah, and that's just asking about the Me Too movement was, is there something, and it's sort of also like the Occupy movement or any movements where people are really passionate and they have an issue that is really strong and important, but I don't know if it's funding. I mean, the thing is that issues come and go, and issues are they're very important. I mean, we had a farm crisis, or you have a mortgage crisis, or you have all these crises that happen. And,
medical.
Right. And so you have people going to bankruptcy because they can't afford their medical insurance, or they can't afford medical care, and so. But when it comes time to respond to it, the organizations that quickly spring up out of interest and excitement quickly die because of lack of organizational structure.
Exactly.
And also and some of that is a function of money. That you can't pay to have the organizer, whereas the opposing side is money.
Exactly.
And you're fighting against some pretty powerful entrenched interests that have been there for decades, if not centuries.
Well, and some of them have floated to the top that had good organizational structure. And I feel like Pantsuit Revolution, thanks to Kimba and Julie, who are our founding ladies.
Volunteer people.
They are spouses, and they are volunteers.
Yeah, and
we're all volunteers.
Everybody's volunteer, right?
We're all volunteers. We've reshaped it just a little bit, even in this year, thinking, are we heading in the direction we want to do? And
in 2018.
Yes, and we're narrowing our focus down, sort of reshaping it to say these are our important priorities. And we're not going to reinvent the wheel. So we'll hop on with Sister District, or we'll hop on with Indivisible, or somebody else and help them.
Right.
So we're not all spinning our wheels doing the same thing.
Yeah.
And so those are the ones that have kind of floated to the surface, are Indivisible, Swing Left, Occupy, and I think Pantsuit Revolution, even though we're not a nationwide thing yet. A
lot of times people want to join a local group that isn't affiliated with a national thing.
And this is kind of ours is kind of a safe, it is a safe space for women to feel like they can go there and tell their stories and come from any background and not feel like they might they've been offended or hurt by maybe men in their lives that they don't. So we don't have any men in that group. Sure. Sister District Project, by the sound of the name, you would think it was all women, but it's just a sister district, meaning we're adopting. There are lots of men in that organization, leadership and down in the trenches, and same with Swing Left and some of those. So we are strictly a women's group. So
well, having very strong women's groups is really important right now.
I think so.
There has to be a voice, and But it's interesting, you know, when we're growing up. I mean, and we're sort of similar in age. I'm a little bit older, but you know, when we're growing up, the emphasis was on desegregation and to integrate people, and at a time when people, I guess, you know, different populations didn't know each other because they never met each other, and so they, you know, we have school busing and that sort of thing. And now it seems that in order for us to get started in getting things done, what we have to do is we have to resegregate ourselves.
A little bit, maybe, with and see, there's that's another sort of a quandary for me, is that we have protested against men's groups, you know, Elks Lodges and all that kind of stuff that leaves women out, and yet here we are meeting a secret group and not letting men in. So
Well, the thing is that if you know, you join the men's group, then you get co-opted and become, you know, part of the men's group, and then think, well, you know, maybe we shouldn't have women in this group because, you know, the self-haters or something. Whereas, you know, why, you know, there is something to be proud in, you know, your gender.
Exactly, a pride of, we're not, because all of us have loving, caring, passionate men in our lives, whether they're our spouses, our partners, our fathers, our brothers, whatever they are. So we're not anti-men in that group of women, not at all. We're not men haters. We don't ever, that ever even comes up. It's just a safe place right now for women who have felt like they have taken a beating, figuratively or literally. And in fact, when the sexual harassment thing came up,
and not been listened to either.
Not being listened to, not have a voice. The whole sexual harassment thing that's been coming the last couple of months gave us all freedom to just sort of think that over and go, you know, that thing that happened 20 years ago, that's what that was. And now it has a name. Back then it was just like boys will be boys, you know, and now it has a name, and it validates all those feelings we've had.
And also, you know, as men, we have to think, well, you know, I mean, what is, you know, what is the social norm for this? What is, what you know, what do I, you know, you sort of think about how you react to things.
Especially men in your age group, which is my age group, because I think, so my son is 27, my daughter's 22, and I think even they still have a little remnant left over of that, do I open the door or do I not open the door? But now I'm working with 13 and 14-year-olds where they're all opening the door for each other, and they're not really thinking gender, the whole gender deal. In fact, I came over to a table of 3 young women that were working together on a project. I said, so ladies, how are we doing over here? She goes, are you genderizing me or something? Some word I hadn't even heard of yet. I said, oh, you're right. I said, okay, students, how are you doing?
There you go.
So learning to use words, it's hard. You have to think ahead before you speak out sometimes, and that's hard for me.
Well, and I think the younger folks are learning from all of this. I mean, in the same way that they learned that, you know, Donald Trump can become president, given all of his nastiness. They also are learning that there is a way to fight back against that.
Yes, because that was a scary message that got sent, and now they're seeing. And I'm real careful not to cross my politics into my classroom, but I'm not afraid to talk about social issues and help empower them. And to give them the positive message. So I shared with them about Oprah this morning because I want them to get that too.
Now, could you show that speech in your class?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. We're a sanctuary district, sanctuary school. We're very Vallejo is the 3rd most diverse city in the.
So you wouldn't get any pushback by parents.
No pushback at all. No. And if I did, I could easily envelop that into social studies.
So and so that's sort of a semi-urban type of
very
place.
Urban.
Whereas, like where I live, out in rural areas, that's where there's still a lot of work to be done in terms of being not being threatened by African American woman saying the things that she's saying that are talking about empowerment and giving women a voice. You know?
And you probably have a lot of trucks with gun racks in the back for.
Yeah, we have a lot of State of Jefferson signs. You know,
exactly.
We have a lot of,
So you're on the front lines in a different way. I'm on the front lines educationally, and you're on the front lines politically.
And it is a discussion that we all have to have, and like you're saying, it's folks who are my age and you know, who are entrenched in certain ways of looking at people, and there's young people who are rebellious by nature, and they will listen to their parents, and a lot of times they will carry the same prejudices that their parents do.
And you might be looked at almost as an enigma in that they'll look at you and make a judgment, and they'll go, "Oh my gosh, you're not anything like what I thought you might be like."
Yeah, and we're going to see. I'm running for election this year.
Yeah. Let us know. You know what?
Yeah, it'll be
Let
interesting.
us know, because Pantsuit Revolution doesn't only support women candidates. We like to look for them, but gosh, you are like an advocate for exactly what we stand for.
We haven't had a women candidate in the last. I would say the last good representative for our district was a woman, but it was like 20 years ago.
Yeah.
And
sad.
so it's been so anyway, so we're getting close
down there.
we're getting close
an hour flew by.
This is Peace and Justice Connections radio. I'm Bruce Giudici, your host, with Irene Western. Finally got it right. With
there you go.
Pantsuit Revolution.
Third try.
And so, exactly. And so what are you seeing in your classroom there? Eighth graders. What sort of are girls? How long have you been teaching that grade level?
I've worked with teenagers forever, but I've been a teacher for 10 years. This is my 4th year with 8th graders.
Are you seeing any difference in the way girls are acting, or are they more outspoken, or are
definitely more
assertive?
Yeah, and I think it's because I have brown and black students all around. They're all around themselves, as opposed to if you had a couple of brown and black students in a predominantly white atmosphere, where they might not feel that. It's almost like they don't even notice. They speak out. They don't feel like there's any reason to be afraid to say what they want to say. And the girls, they're not afraid to say stuff in front of the boys anymore. It's just like, I don't think they have this whole gender thing like we do.
Yeah.
You and I have it big time, but we're not that way. We haven't adopted that. Some of the kids that are millennials, they've got remnants of it. But this new group, and I'm not even sure if we have a name for them yet.
Yeah, I don't know. Generation
13-year-olds, I don't know what they call them yet. But I
Mm-hmm.
think they're going to have almost none of that. And then by the time their kids are born, maybe people won't be wowed by a woman president, or a gay president, or a Hispanic president, or they won't be wowed. They'll just be like, they'll assume it's going to be somebody besides a white male.
Yeah. Well, yeah, and that, that would be the hope.
Yeah, and that's what I see from them right now.
But there's always going to be the pushback by folks who are not willing to give up the power that they've always held.
Yeah.
Either money power, or sex power, or color power.
It's like the statues. The statues in the South. Those were a way to say we're still in charge.
Yeah.
And so there are statues, metaphorical statues all over.
That's right. Yeah, and some of them are legislatures, and some of them are districts that are carved up to guarantee people seats.
Oh, gerrymandering? Don't even get me started. We need another show for that.
Yeah, that's right. Well, yeah, I mean, in terms of Virginia, it was amazing that they were able to pull up even, and then they just recently pulled back to close to even. But still, that's going to be the big test, is because this next election, I guess it's the 2020 election, that will determine the districts, the people who are going to be during districts, not in California so much because it's a nonpartisan thing, but in other areas, depending upon who wins, that charts the course for. It
does, because in 2022 is when they'll be doing the redistricting.
And that's why we're living with what we have now, is because the Tea Party took over in 2010, and then they redrew all the districts, and then people were disenfranchised for a decade.
And now we are going to take over in 2018, and we'll do that again.
It'll be interesting. Yeah, that would be the hope, and it would just be wonderful to see so many more women. And I'm hoping that women are running. Are you seeing that more women are running?
Oh, absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yep. I'm seeing way more candidates.
Alrighty. Well, very good. Well, with that, we can put to bed this issue.
Yeah.
Thank you very much for your time.
This was great. I feel like I got 2 shows with you.
Thanks, Irene. Irene Western with Pantsuit Revolution. This is Bruce
you.
Giudici with Peace and Justice Connections. Good evening. Thank you.